Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be doing a review of Equal Rites, a book in the Discworld series, the third book in the Discworld series. Despite this being the third book in the Discworld, it's actually the fourth Discworld book that I've read. The first of them was actually the fourth, which is Mort. And so I read Mort. I was really trying to figure out, and I had a hard time figuring out where to start in Discworld. I've always been interested in Discworld. I know that it's just this big staple in the fantasy genre, and it's something that I hadn't read before. But I'd always been rather intimidated in Discworld, just knowing that there's 41 books in the series. And even though, I've heard that, it doesn't matter, you can just read it for fun and all that, but it's just been a little bit intimidating. So eventually, I finally was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to read more. I'll find that one. People say that one's a really good entry to Discworld, so let me try that one. And they were right. I really loved Mort. It was such a fun, funny, witty book. All the things that people say about Pratchett, the absurdism, the wit, just the laughter, it was all there. And it was just a really cool story with really cool characters. And I really enjoyed reading this. So much so that it kind of sold me on the Discworld altogether. And I thought, okay, I definitely want to read more Discworld. But I still didn't really know where or how. When you're thinking about Discworld, and I'm sure if you're interested in the Discworld, I'm sure you've heard this, you get so many suggestions about how you should go about the Discworld. You hear, read a whole arc, so read all the death books, just read all the death books, and then move on to all of the witches books and all of the guards books and just read them that way. Sometimes you hear, you can just read any book, just read them in any order that you want. You can read it chronologically. Here's another random order of how you should best read them in this kind of chaos order. And it just all was, again, a bit overwhelming. And I thought, you know what? I really liked Mort. But what helped me decide how to actually go about which order to read it is that when I was reading Mort, I kind of felt like there were some subtle references that I was missing. I could tell there were references. It didn't really affect the enjoyment of the story for me, but I could tell that they were kind of like a subtle reference to something that I missed in there. And I was like, okay, well, this is the fourth book in the Discworld. So if there are references that I'm not getting from this already, then maybe there's a couple things that I should read, and okay, maybe I'll just go chronologically through the Discworld. And so the next books that I read were The Color of Magic and The Light Fantastic. These two are basically the only books in the Discworld that are direct continuations of one another. Pretty much everything else, although they have reoccurring characters, are not a direct continuation in terms of story. And so I read both of these books, and I had heard before that The Color of Magic, Light Fantastic, these are two of the weakest and worst Discworld books. They were the first Discworld books, and Pratchett hadn't really found his step yet. But I've heard that about some of my favorite books, of that, that's not the greatest book and things that are wrong with that book. And so I thought, you know what, that's okay, I'm not going to listen. I'm going to read these two books and really go for it and enjoy it. But people were right with this one. They were okay books. There were some genuinely funny moments in the books and things that I enjoyed and I thought were funny. But overall, they were really tough books for me to get through. I really felt like I had to slog my way through these books. They took me a long time to read, and it really kind of just stopped me in my tracks with Discworld for quite some time. I'm pretty sure I read these books almost a year ago, if not maybe a bit more than that. And just recently, when I was finishing reading My Friends and I thought I wanted to do a palate cleanser, and I already owned Equal Rites because I bought the three of these together after reading Mort. And I thought, okay, you know what? I have Equal Rites. Let me maybe give Discworld another shot and try it out again. And that's kind of where we are now in terms of actually getting to Equal Rites. So with this book, again, I was looking for a palate cleanser, something fun to read. And I was like, okay, let me take a shot. And oh boy, was I right. This book, Equal Rites, was such an absolute joy to read. I just feel like I absolutely flew through this book. It was so funny and fun. Yeah, it was a really great book. Basically, some non-spoiler thoughts for the book here. The book follows a wizard who basically, at the start of the book, this wizard comes over and he's wanting to pass on his powers. In the Discworld, you can only pass on your wizardly powers to an 8th son of an 8th son. And so he comes to do that, but silly wizard, he did not check and make sure, and actually, it's not an eighth son of an eighth son, it's an eighth daughter of an eighth son. Or rather, the eighth child is a daughter, 7 older brothers. And thus, our first female wizard is born on the Discworld. And so we follow Escarina and Granny Weatherwax as they kind of try and navigate this whole thing. And it just is such a fun story. I laughed so many times out loud while reading this book. It just has a lot of the classic Pratchett absurdism and humor that I really liked in Mort, and that I found that I was missing a bit in Color of Magic and Light Fantastic. It is all here in Equal Rites. And it was just such an absolute fun book. And the fact that it is hitting on such important topics and themes. This book was written in 1987. And yeah, it talks about things that are super relevant today. I would hazard an argument that there are certain world leaders that could benefit by reading a book like this. And to do it all under the kind of fun guise of fantasy, yeah, it's just great. It was really, really funny to read that. Yeah, it just talks about how anything men can do, women can also do, and really highlights and touches on the fact that just because things have always been done a certain way, that doesn't mean they always have to continue to be done in that way. I mean, it's right there in the title, Equal Rites. Obviously, the joke in this is that it's rites as in like a ritual of some kind, and magic and fantasy, ooh, but, you know, it's equal rights, like the rights of a person. Yeah, again, just so good, such a clever way to do that, and just really, really enjoyed how it was done and how it was portrayed in this story. This book really reignited my passion and excitement for the Discworld. I think I liked it just as much, if not maybe more, than I liked Mort. It's been a long time since I read Mort, so I don't know 100%. I have to reread it to kind of get a better grasp, but regardless, needless to say, I really enjoyed this book, and I'm excited to continue to read on in the Discworld and kind of see where things go from here. And if you are thinking about starting the Discworld, I would definitely say this is a good starting point for Discworld, or you can just read it as a standalone. Honestly, I would recommend this book to almost anybody. It was a really great and fun read. Okay, so that ends our spoiler-free section. We're going to talk a bit more about spoilers now for the story and touch upon some specific story moments that I really enjoyed. First off, I thought the beginning of this book was just stellar. Drumfillet coming, the conversations that he was having with the smith, just really liked his casual nature about dying and all that kind of stuff was really cool. I just thought it was funny, the way that magic can pass on, the eighth son and eighth son. Really liked that. I like the fact that you see, just like right from the start, how brave Esk is as a person, how she's braver than her older brothers in a lot of different ways, and how she's just willing to go off and do her thing. Really thought that was really cool. The fact that they go, and that even when they think and they find Granny's dead body, Granny Weatherwax's dead body, that she kind of like springs into action, sends off her brothers, and is going to stay there. And even though she kind of gets spooked and runs off, really liked that about that being in the story. And I really thought it was cool, the fact that Granny Weatherwax is kind of borrowing that crow. I thought that was super cool. Her then having to go and rescue Esk, only to find out the staff had already done that for her, was just a really cool kind of entry beginning of the story. I really also loved the training that Esk and Granny go through of trying to train Esk how to use magic. I thought that was really cool. Just any kind of like training montage sequence, you're always going to get me with that kind of stuff. So I was really, really excited and enjoying reading that. Eventually, once they get to the point of Esk learning how to borrow, and Granny eventually teaches her how to borrow, and her just like immediately just being overconfident and really taking on the eagle and almost becoming the eagle. It just was so true and accurate to what an 8-year-old child would do, just thinking that they know more than an adult and really just kind of going into it and finding out the hard way that maybe they don't know more than their elders. And that was just a really cool scene. And the fact that she almost, got absorbed by the eagle just made the stakes real so quickly. So I really liked that aspect of the story for sure. All of that was just so great. Loved the first half of the story. Pretty much right until we got to the point where we set off to go in search and find Unseen University, and for Esk to like officially take on her wizard training. At that point, when they started kind of exploring all the side quests that the characters started to go on, I just was not as into it. There were some interesting parts. I think what I really didn't like is when Granny and Esk got separated. I really adored the relationship that was built up between Granny Weatherwax and Escarina, and so when they were separated and were both kind of going through their own little things, I found it difficult to get as invested. I know that it kind of is something that had to happen. We had to see Esk on her own and kind of showcase her resourcefulness. We had to meet Simon, and there was a way to do that. And then even learning a bit more about Granny and kind of who she is as a person. But needless to say that once they finally got reunited again, I was much more excited again. There was, like I said, a good chunk of the middle of the book there when they were separated that there were some for sure some actually really good moments in that section. But I was very excited for them to kind of get reunited again and for us to kind of be back at it again with the duo. And then when they finally get to Unseen University, you get to really kind of start to see and highlight some of the stuff I was talking about before about the commentary that Pratchett is trying to make about our modern world. He really starts to make it very heavy-handedly as soon as you get to Unseen University. I think there's no other way to put it than Granny Weatherwax is just a badass. No pun intended. She just storms in and is unwilling to accept the fact that any man would know more than she could possibly know as a woman, and just storms in and really takes control of the situation in the university and does not care that she shouldn't be somewhere, that she shouldn't be in the Great Hall, that it's against the lore. I thought that was such a good line that they continued to use, that it's against the lore, because it's not a rule, it's the lore. How things should be, not an actual rule, the lore. I just thought that was really well done. Yeah, I loved that line and the fact that they reused that in various different ways. And yeah, she just comes in and just fully takes it in. And she's tried her best to pass on that kind of attitude to Esk, and I think mostly that has happened, but Esk is obviously still really young and is having a bit of trouble taking it on fully herself, I think. And then when we get to the point in the story when Simon is being kind of taken in and attacked by those monsters, and Esk takes it upon herself to go in and try and rescue him, that was a really cool sequence, and again, very brave of Esk to do that. But it was super trippy. Seeing Simon sitting outside of our universe, playing with multiple different universes, including the Discworld, including our own, right? There's a very clear indication at one point that he's playing with Earth, and the fact that these are all the size of like marbles. He has a bag of marbles, which is just a ton of different universes, and trying to like mentally wrap my head around that picture was just super trippy. It was just like, whoa, what if that was real? What if our whole universe is just the size of a marble in somebody else's game? It was just a really trippy scene, but super cool to have Esk go in there and really kind of just, again, that bravery, that tenacity that she has, and just kind of go in and showcase that. And then on that same note, while that's happening, you're getting to see Granny Weatherwax and Cut Angle, and kind of their relationship kind of developing a little bit, and how they're butting heads. I thought it was really kind of funny, the actual relationship that starts to showcase between the two of them, primarily on Cut Angle's kind of side, but the actual kind of, having learned a bit from Color of Magic and Light Fantastic about what it takes to be a wizard, and getting to see Cut Angle kind of be like, oh wow, this woman, like, she's making me think these things that I probably shouldn't think, or I haven't thought in a long time. Just thought that was a really kind of funny aspect of the story. And then really the end, I thought the end was really, really nice, that really well put, Cut Angle realizing that he should be doing something different, and that just because things have always been done a certain way doesn't mean they have to continue to always be done a certain way. And so ultimately letting Escarina study wizardry and go to Unseen University, and making Granny Weatherwax a part-time instructor for the university was just really cool, and a really nice, wrap up to that story. It was really nice. Now, I want to showcase a couple different quotes from the book, because I think it would be an injustice to not showcase some of Pratchett's prose, and I think he does a really good job of showcasing different things in short time. So forgive me, I'm just going to look for a couple quotes here, and then I'll read them out as I kind of find them. So here's one that I thought was really good, and I thought was funny, but I thought upon reflection it's also just like very true. Time passed, which basically is its job. it's true. What does time do other than pass? So that was a funny little quote. And again, just the way that they happen to showcase things, that Pratchett showcases things, that I just thought is just really funny. Another really good one. It was no use trying to use the front door. Front doors in Badass were used only by brides and corpses, and Granny had always avoided becoming either. Oh, I love this one. Granny bit her lip. She was never quite certain about children, thinking of them, when she thought of them at all, as coming somewhere between animals and people. She understood babies. You put milk in one end and kept the other end as clean as possible. Adults were even easier, because they did the feeding and cleaning themselves. But in between was a world of experience that she had never really inquired about. As far as she was aware, you just tried to stop them catching anything fatal and hoped that it would all turn out all right. I just thought that was such a funny section when I read that, and like, in some ways, how true is it that you just kind of try your best with kids, and when they're in that kid stage, you try your best to make sure that everything turns out all right. I just really like that a lot. Another one that I really enjoyed is when Esk is trying to learn a bit of magic. How did you do that? Said Esk. Ah, said Granny. Wouldn't you like to know? Yes, I would. That's why I asked, Granny, said Esk severely. Do you think I used magic? Esk looked down at the queen bee. She looked up at the witch. No, she said. I think you just know a lot about bees. Granny grinned. Exactly correct. That's one form of magic, of course. What, just knowing things? Knowing things that other people don't know, said Granny. She carefully dropped the queen back among her subjects and closed the lid to the hive. And again, in a story about magic, something like that is actually true to the real world. Just knowing things that other people don't know is its own form of magic. And how true is that? That's actually true in the real world. You sometimes see people do things in real life that you don't understand how they did that thing, and it is truly magical to see that happen. And again, another just truth that's shown in this, Granny calls it headology. Listen, said Granny, if you give someone a bottle of red jollop for their wind, it may work, right? But if you want to make sure that it works, then you let their mind make it work for them. Tell them it's moonbeams, bottled in fairy wine or something. Mumble over it a bit. It's the same with cursing. Basically just saying that it's the placebo effect. She's describing the placebo effect in a magical world. And it's just really fun that that is being showcased in a way in a fantasy story. Another really funny moment, well, I'll do two here on this page. The staff regarded her woodenly. It's a staff made of wood. I thought that was funny. Then when she's trying to get in touch with the staff, Granny scratched her chin. She remembered the little lesson all children get taught. What's the magic word? Please, she suggested. The staff trembled, rose a little way off of the ground, and turned in the air so that it hung invitingly at waist height. Just, yeah, funny, what's the magic word? It's always please. It's just always please. Another one, this one is I think one of the highlights of the whole story and is just, yeah, incredibly true again of current times. They say a little knowledge is a dangerous thing, but it's not half as bad as a lot of ignorance. So true. Just so true. And this book was written in 1987, and it's just ringing so true for modern times now. Another just funny moment that, again, I think just highlights some of Pratchett's wit and thought process behind things. I never had a figure to speak of, and my teeth take care of themselves, said Granny. It was true, more's the pity. Granny suffered from robustly healthy teeth, which she considered a big drawback in a witch. She really envied Nanny Anapple, the witch over the mountain, who managed to lose all her teeth by the time she was 20, and had real crone credibility. It meant you ate a lot of soup, but you also got a lot of respect. And then there was warts. Without any effort, Nanny managed to get a face like a sock full of marbles, while Granny had tried every reputable wart causer and failed to raise even the obligatory nose wart. Some witches had all the luck. just talking about that, right? The luck on bad things. Yeah, just really clever. And again, just that really highlights that wit for Pratchett for me. Another really nice moment. It's 1,000,000 to 1 chance. 1,000,000 to 1 chances, she said. Crop out 9 times out of 10. Another really good one. Lots of things have never happened before. We're only born once. And one last one, just right at the ending of the story here. Again, just some of the absurdity that Pratchett likes to put in. Perhaps more importantly, the ants used all the sugar lumps they could steal to build a small sugar pyramid in one of the hollow walls, in which, with great ceremony, they entombed the mummified body of a dead queen. On the wall of one tiny hidden chamber, they inscribed in insect hieroglyphs the true secret of longevity. They got it absolutely right, and it would have probably have been important implications for the universe if it hadn't, next time the universe flooded, been completely washed away. The end. Overall, I absolutely loved this story about just a badass woman from Badass who goes on to make a true and powerful change in the world that she lives in. Just a super cool and poignant story. And it was just a lot of fun and funny. The characters and the relationships were just awesome throughout the entirety of the book. And it was just a really, really great read. I would absolutely give this a 4 out of 5 without any questions. A strong 4 out of 5 for me. It like reinvigorated my love in the Discworld. And I'm so excited to see these characters come back eventually when and if they do in the Discworld stories. I'm not sure if both Granny and Esk come back, if Cuttingle comes back. I'm almost certain that Granny comes back from what I've heard, but I hope we see Esk again. I hope we see Cuttingle again. Yeah, it was just a really, really fun book. Have you read any of Discworld? If you have you read Equal Rites? What has been your favorite Discworld book that you've read so far? Did you read it chronologically? Are you reading it by different books all over the place? I would just love to hear your thoughts about Equal Rites in particular. Let's have a conversation about that in the comments, but just your overall thoughts about Discworld and whether you like it, what you like about it. Just really excited to talk more Discworld and to eventually read more Discworld. So until next time, I hope you have a great day.